Okie dokie. So some of you have been asking me a little bit about MLA format, which is how I will be expecting you to cite your sources for your essay. With MLA format, there are two types of citations that you include in your paragraph writing, which are in-text citations and your works cited page. Just a general overview of in-text citations is that in our case, in-text citations will give the author credit, state the year, and reference the page number if applicable. And so it'll look something like this. It'll be a parenthesis with the last name of the author, a comma, the year of publication, and the page number if applicable, all separated by commas. Close your parenthesis and then put the period inside the quotation mark. I won't be super picky about your period placement. You can put it inside or outside the parenthesis. Just make sure that it's consistent throughout your entire essay. So another thing to remember about in-text citations is that you need to always include an in-text citation for quotes, paraphrase, and summary. So if you are quoting something, most people are really good at giving the in-text citation at the end of the quote, but do the same for paraphrase and summary also. I'm also going to say that you should include an in-text citation after every sentence that you are using someone else's work. This isn't necessarily always going to be the case for you. This might change as you get into higher levels of education, but for right now, just including an in-text citation after every sentence is a good way to avoid plagiarism. So it's much better to overcite than to undercite. And then finally, your in-text citations should align with the information from your works cited page. So that means that if you include the author name in the in-text citation, it should also be in the works cited page. Now, I just say this because sometimes you might not have an author name that you can cite if you're using an internet source, which means that you'll just use the title of the work in the in-text citation, and I'll show an example of that. But if you include the author name in the in-text citation, then you also need to include it in your works cited page. It just makes it easy for the reader to go back to your works cited page and get the full scope of the information that you're talking about. So I will bring us over here to an example of a paragraph that I've kind of typed up for you, and we'll talk about in-text citations here. So for example, this is my topic sentence. This is a quality topic sentence because it tells you what the paragraph is about and uses the language from the thesis. And then transition, this topic sentence can be supported with evidence. For example, if I want to give context for the evidence, I'll just paraphrase that here. So here I'm paraphrasing evidence from an expert because I want to be able to give context, but I don't feel the need to give a direct quote. However, I still need to give a citation. So if you just want to do this, if you know all the information, you can say, like Michael Brink, 2018, close your parenthesis. Maybe this didn't have a page number. That's fine. You can totally do that. However, I also suggest that you can use this trick that I use all the time because I don't really like to have to remember all the citation styles, and I've had to do 3 different types. And so I actually go here to the References tab in Word and let Word format all of my citations for me. So here in References tab, I can go to Insert Citation, and I can go to Add a New Source. Here, I'll get a little box that'll tell me all of the different types of sources that might be applicable to my evidence. So I'm just going to pick the one that sounds most like where I got my research. And in this case, we'll go with a journal article. So a journal article usually these are scholarly sources. They're going to have the author name. So let's say the author is Jane Doe. If I am using multiple sources, for example, down here, then I'm going to separate them by a semicolon. But I don't need to write them in last first because Word will change that for me also. The title of this work might be Topic Sentences. Journal name might be Educational Research. The year, we'll just say it was 2015, and page number we'll say 7 to, because this is in journal, 7 to 18. Then I will click OK, and it will format that right here. If I want to include my page number, I can click on this and then click on the arrow, and I'll say edit my citation, and I want to say that this is specifically from page 10. And then it'll include that here. So that's an easy way to do your in-text citation. Then going on, I say, however, experts state that you should only quote the exact part of the text that you intend to analyze. This is really important because sometimes we end up having really long quotes, and that ends up being a really long part that we have to analyze. So just quote the part that you want to analyze and then include your citation. So here, when I go to the References tab, I could have just typed it in, whatever the date and the year, or the author name and the year were, if I wanted to, or I can go back up here. If I click this, it will put in that new one for me, or I can type in another one. So this time I'm going to use a web source because sometimes citing from a website can be difficult. So a website, this is if you just want to use, these ones are more or less the same, but so document from a website, sometimes I use this one as like a web page from a website specifically. Sometimes the web page won't have an author, so I won't include the author on this one. Sometimes you can use a corporate author, like if you're using CNN.com, but it doesn't say who specifically wrote it, you can say CNN. Here we'll say the name of the web page. So let's say the web page name is Citing Evidence. And let's say that the name of the website is Purdue OWL. And the year that I accessed this was on 2018. This is November, and the day is the 28th. So there are two ways that you can interpret this. Sometimes you can use the access date, which is the date that you saw the website, or if the date of the article is on the web page itself, then you can include that here. Then the URL, I'm going to say that the URL is purdueowl.com/citing evidence. And then by including the URL, that means that somebody can go and check back on that website to see what it was that, that you were seeing. Then I'm going to push OK. And you'll notice here that it says Citing Evidence 2018 because I didn't have the author. So instead it uses the title of the web page. And that's totally fine. It doesn't need a page number because the web page doesn't have a page number. Then I go and finish my paragraph up with analysis and connecting back to my thesis. So this brings us to our next part. This is how you can do in-text citations. I also encourage you, though, to check your in-text citations against a website like Purdue OWL. Here I just typed in Purdue OWL MLA into my search engine, and then I'm going to go over here to, I'm going to go over here to MLA style, and then I can go over here for in-text citations, the basics, to check out my in-text citations to make sure that they're all right. So this goes and gives you some great information about in-text citation rules, including here different types of them. So if you include the author here, then you only need to include the page number at the end. If you don't include anything in the beginning, include both at the end. If you include a paraphrase, then you still have to include the page number. So all of these are right, and it looks like my citations from the Word references tool match up with what Purdue OWL is telling me that I should do. So the next thing that you do for citations is your works cited page. So the important things to remember about a works cited page is that this is different from a bibliography because it only includes the works that you actually cite in your paper. So if you were using a bibliography, you might include all of those sources that you found at the beginning of your writing process to give yourself context, or you might have also included the sources that you didn't end up using or ones that just reinforced information that you already had. So a bibliography ends up being really long and comprehensive. A works cited page is just the at least 5 articles or sources that you actually cite in your paper. A works cited page goes at the end of your document, and then you can include the URL in your citation from a web source. So like I showed from the in-text citation using the references tool, include your URL because that'll just give the reader additional information. So going back to this example of an essay, I'm going to insert my works cited page by first going to this insert over here, and I'm going to go to a page break. So a page break just makes it my document go to the next empty page. Then, if you wanted to do this manually, you would just say works cited. You would center this, and then you would have all of your other things go at the end, following the rules for citing in your works cited page. However, I find this part difficult for me, and so I just like to go to the references tool, go to this bibliography section right here, and insert works cited. It'll just do it for me. I like to change the formatting a little bit because MLA format states that you are supposed to have everything the same, so I'm going to change this all to the same font, the same size, and then the same color, because for some reason Word tells you to make works cited blue, which you shouldn't do. Then I'm going to center this, and then I will eventually make all of this double spaced. Perfect. That's a works cited page. So here I have all of my stuff. So here's citing evidence, which is the web source, and these are my 2 journal article sources with page numbers. This is the general formatting. This is actually APA style. And I know it's APA because it doesn't have the first names. So I need to actually go back and change this in my references. Make sure that on style you have MLA, and then it'll just switch it to MLA for you. This is really nifty because if you are citing in the like the social sciences, you'll be using APA. If you're using history, you'll be using Chicago. If you're in English, you'll be doing MLA. So in order to make this a little less difficult for you, then I prefer to just use this tool because then I can switch it around easily. Occasionally, if you include other citations as you're working, you'll have to update your citations in bibliography, and it'll change it. But otherwise, I find this tends to be pretty sufficient. However, I do encourage you to check it against Purdue OWL because Purdue OWL tells you the actual MLA style guides. If you're having questions about how to sort things, you can go to, for example, MLA electronic sources, and it'll talk about here how to do basic style for electronic sources. So this is a great resource. I really encourage you to use it. You may have also noticed that there are 3 or 4 QR codes in the classroom over by the door, kind of next to Yoda. Those QR codes will take you to the specific MLA style guides in Purdue OWL for the different types of sources that you may need to cite, including a text source, a text source, an electronic source, or perhaps an interview also. So overall, that's just what you need to do for MLA format is include your in-text citations, and then also make sure to include your works cited page with just the stuff that you have cited in your essay. So if you have any other questions about this, come and find me. Thanks.